My name is Jakaš Kapin, and this is In Conversation, the monthly series of live interviews with members of our global community. Welcome to the Global Vocal Improvisation Network. Before we invite our guest in, also another warm invitation to visit our profile or our website at thewellvocal.com, where you can become a member for free, support our work, upload your events, maybe browse through the resources page and find useful books and toolkits, videos, and much, much, much more. So we welcome you there. And now we are going to see if our guest today, Onome, is ready to join us. She's someone that I first met actually in person 2 years ago. It was now in London at the UK Vocal Improv on Tour Festival, but I've known of her already since the pandemic, seeing her work online. So let us see if Onome... Hello.
We are live and
We are
matching.
live. Welcome. Looking beautiful. Color
Thank
coordinated
you.
and the rest.
Thank you.
How are you doing today? How was the beginning of your day?
It's good. It's good. Yeah, it's just an ordinary day in June here in upstate New York, where I've been living for the past 5 years now after a lifetime in New York City. I always joke I'm part of the Brooklyn Exodus, the pandemonium exodus out of New York City.
Yes, and maybe we can even chat about that. I'm quite interested in how that impacted your work. We are here
Yeah,
under the title of Vocal Tapestry, which, if
yeah.
I'm not mistaken, that's how you call some of your offerings, but not all of them. So maybe
hmm
just for people that don't know you, we can start by you introducing yourself in any way you would like, your vocal improvisation work, whatever you feel it's most alive in this season of your life, and then we can dig deeper into your history and more.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I am a vocalist, an improviser, a teacher, a performer, all the things. And the thing that I love to do most of all is sing with groups of people, whether it's in an ensemble context or leading a choir or leading a workshop, leading a singing circle. I love just bringing people together to sing. And hi, Sing for Yourself 2020. Um, And I did that a lot in New York City, and I've been finding my footing in doing that here in upstate New York. And there's some argument as to even what's considered upstate New York. Some people say anything north of the Bronx, for those who are familiar with the geography of New York City. You know, anything outside of that bubble is upstate. And then there's the folks that are like, no, only the area close to Canada is like the real upstate. It's the
And are you in
downstate
the real
folks.
upstate?
No, I'm like 2 hours from New York City, so I still kind of catch some of the vibe. I still go into the city every once in a while. Not as often as I thought I would, because it's kind of a bubble up here too. Like, you know, a lot of people from New York City moved up here, and even before that, I mean, there's always been this creative streak. You know, I live about 30 minutes from Woodstock, which is a very famous small city, you know, one of the most famous music festivals in the world because of really great marketing. And like they're still, you know, still get a lot of tourism just off that alone. And there are a lot of little towns like that all over, like Beacon, Kingston, where there's these really beautiful artistic scenes. And I'm planting my seeds of vocal improvisation in these various spaces. And let's see, another important thing to know about me is one of the most formative experiences in my vocal improv journey specifically, because, you know, I've always been a choir geek. I've always been singing in some group or another throughout my life. But like the experience that really anchored me within the niche of vocal improvisation was working with several other musical practitioners of all different disciplines, instrumentalists, vocalists, composers, in this lab slash ensemble called Moving Star, and we all met at Carnegie Hall, and built this really beautiful community and these practices that have really informed my work. And I stumbled onto that world through the world of Bobby McFerrin. So those are like the two big inflection points in my musical life. Learning about the world of vocal improv as based on the approach of Bobby McFerrin, which both you and I are very much informed by that world. I used to go to his every year. He had this big retreat here in upstate New York, and that also helped me acclimatize to the upstate New York world. This place called Omega Institute. And that was my Star Trek convention. That was like going to the well to replenish. It's also where I met Rhiannon, who's I believe the founder of the Well, or one of the founders of the Well. So like those two concurrent happenings really informed my ambition to go as far as my imagination would take me in the world of vocal improvisation. And there's still so much further to go.
Yes, exactly. And what changed after that? So for instance, for most people, there's a time before and after. So how do you think now, looking back, going to Omega, finding this world of, using voice in a particular way, but still very diverse, how did that impact you as a person, as a musician, as a leader?
Yeah. So before I was a seeker of something that I couldn't name. I knew that it involved spontaneous creation. I knew that it involved community and creative fellowship. And I knew that it involved the voice. And funnily enough, I knew of Bobby McFerrin since I was like 9 years old. He had that big hit, Don't Worry, Be Happy. I loved that song, never knowing that the thing that made that song so notable was that he was actually doing all the instrumentation. Like his voice was the bass, his voice was the drum. I did not know that. I just thought it was a cool song. So he planted that seed like 9 years old that I didn't even know was there. So fast forward to adulthood, I'm looking for I just want to jam with people. And the Grateful Dead wasn't really appealing to me because it was all instrumental. So that was, and all white people, love white people, but I needed more diversity. So that wasn't the right world for me. And then I got into hip hop freestyle, and that actually scratched a lot of that itch, but then it was very masculine, like hyper masculine. And that didn't resonate with me either. But it got me closer. I'm like, okay, I'm into this. Okay, it's mostly spoken word. I prefer singing, but okay, it's inching me closer along to this thing that I didn't know existed, and that other people were looking for too, or other people were even already involved with. So the other exploration I had was, jazz. Jazz is all improvisation again. Heavily, at least what I was exposed to at that point in my journey in the early millennial aughts, whatever you call it. I was mostly exposed to, again, the instrumental world, beautiful world, very masculine, very hyper masculine world. Again, a different kind of hyper masculinity than the hip hop, but it was still very I'd go to jam sessions where I'm the only woman. And I'm also also a vocalist, and there's this whole vocalist, or at least there was. I think now it's a little more equitable, but yeah, oh, you're just a vocalist. You don't know about suspensions, and you don't know your chords. Very elitist. And so I was like, yeah, this ain't it. And there was also a weird kind of rigidity inside of this world of jazz improvisation that's supposed to be about spontaneity and freedom, and I didn't experience it as freedom. I experienced this sense of rigidity. Now looking back, I have more of an appreciation for, it actually is good to learn those fundamentals. It's actually good to learn phrasing, and it's good to learn the standards, and it's good to respect the canon that has been built through all the spontaneous combustions that have evolved within the genre of jazz.
Yes.
Yes, I support respecting that and like gaining that knowledge. At the time, though, I just wanted to sing. I just wanted to play, and the play it felt serious in this way where there was no room for my kind of playfulness.
Hmm.
Like, okay, that's this ain't it. And so I just kept searching, 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 and I actually landed in an interesting place, a sound healing program, this like sound healing certification program. So it's all about like gongs and bone conduction and, ways different frequencies can tap into the different sound frequencies to hone in on that, affect different parts of the body and affect our well-being. And there was someone I met there who, I mentioned to her, like, hey, it was actually, my name's Stephanie Rooker. I was like, I'm looking for like a vocal jam. Like, does that exist? Not a choir per se, where you sing, set composed songs, but like a place to just play freely with the voice, with other people who have developed a certain acumen with their voice where, it'll sound good. It won't be off key. It'll be people who have choir and voice in their background, but like a space to just sing freely. Does that exist? And she was like, actually, yes, there's a woman named Kate Geller in New York City who at the time was hosting, she had been hosting weekly gatherings at her loft. And by the time I learned about it, it had moved out of her loft and into like a rehearsal space in Manhattan. And by that point, it was already going on for like 8 years, like going strong. And so I went that Monday night, I want to say 2012 or 2013, a year of awakening for a lot of people, in a lot of ways for those who are into metaphysics, the Mayans and all of that. So I go on Monday night and I instantly fell in love, and I went like every single Monday night, like since.
Wow. So you're still going, but no, not anymore, but you're going for
Not anymore. Yeah. So it's from there I met, the people who introduced me to the Carnegie Hall thing, and then I started teaching and became this whole thing. And then when what I call the pandemonium, some of you might
Yes.
know it, the COVID lockdown happened. They switched to online, and I was also doing my own thing, leading open sings online, and as you know, leading any kind of group singing online is a very different experience from being in person. So it doesn't scratch all the itches, but it helps keep the community going. And I am forever grateful to those Monday nights were magical. Like they opened up my sense of possible, like this, that this was actually a thing. And it was not only a thing that these 20 or so people loved, coming every Monday night in New York City, but there are all these other people all over the world who would go hang out with this guy, Bobby McFerrin. And Bobby McFerrin was a pioneer of this work that I had no name for. Like I knew a cappella, I knew vocal improv in the context of jazz and hip hop freestyle, but I didn't know vocal improv in the context of like actually using your voice across all genres, and like having the voice be a genre in and of itself.
Yes.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yes, I'm always grateful for people for sharing so openly and giving the entry points. I find them super interesting. And maybe now on to Carnegie Hall. So people might know it as a classical music venue, and you've also done vocal improvisation at the United Nations and maybe some corporate settings. So I want to ask you about these places where vocal improvisation is not seemingly, it's not the natural habitat for it. So how do you approach, groups that are brand new in an environment that is non-musical, or at least seemingly non-musical? How has your approach to that developed?
Yeah, well, first I'll say the word seemingly is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that question, because there are always, like in every setting, even the most corporate, the cultural center churches. I once did this, it was, well, first I'll mention before I really jumped full feet first and head first, body, like just full on
Body first.
butterfly into vocal improv. I was doing a lot of creative writing workshops,
Okay.
and like performance workshops. And there was one that stuck out. I did a workshop at a library for a group of Sikh men.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not Sikh. I'm not Indian. It was, it stood out as the most like unfamiliar community I had ever worked with.
Yes.
And yet they loved it because, you know, whatever culture you come from, you're going to love having an opportunity to be creative, especially if you don't have opportunities to be creative in your everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
Like creativity, creative expression is the great unifier across all culture. Voice in particular, the thing that's so magical about voice is when you're, I find that if you, even if you don't identify as a singer, if you're put in a space where you feel safe to use your voice, it's going to be such a deeply ecstatic experience for you because it's an opportunity for you to practice in real time, overcoming the inner voice that says you can't sing or you don't have the right training or you don't belong here. You get to actually experience the refutation of that in real time. Like, oh, I'm doing that thing that an inner voice said I'm not supposed to do. Oh, it's kind of naughty, but kind of enthralling. So like having that one particular creative writing experience with that community is what kind of opened the doors for me to, it was one of those many little seeds that were planted along the way. In
Mm-hmm.
addition to like engaging in hip hop freestyle in this space that, you know, didn't necessarily resonate for me, but the creativity itself did. Like
Yeah.
what was coming out of people's mouths was what resonated for me. Like that was the universal, again, the universal unifier. And so I say all that to say, I go in a corporate setting where, you know, the framing and the marketing around something like vocal improv, which doesn't have as big a footing in the corporate world as say theater improv. Like there's much more entree with theater improv is like, oh, build collaborative skills, build leadership skills. Now with singing, I have found that it can be a tougher sell because of SELL and a tougher sell to crack CELL, precisely because people get so subconscious about their voices. Like as self-conscious as they might get stepping into like a theatrical skit, there's a whole other like layer of terror that shows up in using your voice in this kind of way. But there's also underneath that terror, there's a kind of thrill of like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this in front of my coworkers. And I kind of enjoy it, but I don't want to let on how much I enjoy it. So it's this weird mix of like terror and thrill and enthusiasm, but not wanting to show too much enthusiasm because that's cringy and you don't want, you know, you want to be composed and professional.
You're
So it's kind of breaking through all those different walls, but in this way that's very, um, very scaffolded. Like I wouldn't throw them on in the deep end right away. I think you kind of build to that higher exposure with your own inner contradictions and with your own like fear of being seen in a deeper way or being seen through a different dimension, being seen through a more creative dimension among your coworkers, among your bosses. So just like making it really easy and inviting for people to you know get a little bit silly, and still and through that pathway of being creative and letting yourself be silly and letting yourself be open-ended and curious and empathetic. You know, you're building those soft skills, you're building the leadership, you're building the collaboration, you're boosting the morale of your team. You know, you're getting those solid skills, but through a pathway that is so unexpected that it's kind of disarming.
mm-hmm.
So like that's the fun in,
Yes.
you know, particularly like seeing how that plays out in more kind of corporate contexts. So
And how
yeah.
do you approach imagining or building that pathway? I know there might be a lot of facilitators listening to this conversation as well, members of the Well. So
Yeah.
are there, yeah, ways to imagine it in advance or over time? What did you learn about actually creating the pathway for people in those settings where people are maybe interested, but they're not, already in part?
hmm So I am a big believer over these many years, 10, 11, 12, I guess 11 years now, of, of facilitating. One thing that has come up for me a lot is, so in the more kind of creative writing theater world that I was more tapped into while seeking the thing that, the thing that really scratches the itch for me of group vocal improvisation. One popular saying in the creative writing world is show don't tell. So what that means is paint a picture. Don't just say he was sad. Evoke sadness in the reader through his actions, through, blah, 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 blah. And how that translates musically, when I'm leading a workshop, when I'm leading a singing circle experience, is as much as possible, rather than having an overly didactic music class,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to bring the best of both worlds with showing and telling. Because absolute beginners, there is an element of telling that just like there's some things I just have to explain. I just have to front load. But whenever I see an opportunity to front load in a way that embeds the musicality within it, I mean, even something as simple as singing the directions, or having the practitioners, having the participants keep a common rhythm or a loop going with like space in between, silence in between for me to give whatever directions or give whatever insights or principles that's guiding the experience. It's like they're in creating this rhythm together, this loop together, when I'm talking about creative alchemy, where I'm talking about how you can create you're not creating from nothing, you're creating from everything. And they're creating something together in real time as I'm explaining that. It's like hitting hitting two cylinders at the same time, or feeding two birds with one stone, or feeding multiple birds with one stone. And so the information is landing for them through different entry points. And the people who gravitate more toward more of the showing, like they're loving the fact that they're like, it's a call and response. Like they're singing and I'm responding with like the next leg of the journey, or the next rule, or the next element, the next principle. And the people who are more into the telling were like, I want to understand everything before I do anything. I want it explained to me. I want to make sure I'm doing it right. I get to kind of bypass a little bit of that, because they're getting instruction. They're getting that sense of safety and groundedness that comes from being logical and doing it right, while also doing the thing, and perhaps doing the thing a little bit wrong, or doing the thing in a way. Okay, let me give an example.
Yes, please.
Let's say you've got a rhythm going. You got a boom, 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 ba, boom, boom, ba, boom, boom. And because I, as a facilitator, I have that pulse very clear in my body. And I'm explaining that I am making it a point to have it clear in my body so that you have it clear in your body. And so and you amplify this clarity. And if I'm not so clear, boom, bop, boom, boom, clap, that lack of clarity will also land in your body as lack of clarity. So it's really important for me to be clear. The same way, if you're leading a meeting or if you're leading a project, your clarity will radiate out into other people's bodies and energy fields as clarity, and your lack of clarity will also resonate as lack of clarity. So if you're ever wondering as a leader how you're landing for your team, look at how your team is actually responding, because they're reflecting you. So like that kind of meta. So they're getting the meta narrative, and they're also getting the narrative in their bodies. Like they're feeling oh, it feels good to be clear. It feels good to have a clear rhythm. It's very grounding and secure when we're on the same page. And then you have that one person, maybe that one person who's more kind of analytically focused, and they're just like half a second off.
Mm.
And they can see that there's enough of a contrast where everybody else is fully in the trance and is fully in the rhythm, and they can feel that they're slightly off, but they're not yet, they have the awareness to know that they're off, but they don't yet have the awareness to know how to get on. And that is a great source of frustration. But it's that good kind of frustration that tends to inevitably have them meld into that oneness, that unified field. And then when they met, how do I put this? When they melt into that unified field, there's this sense of recognition, like, oh, I'm on the beat. But then that recognition of like, oh, I'm on the beat gets them off beat again because it takes them out of the out of the moment. And so they're getting their own internal meta narrative of like, oh yeah, once I'm in the field, just stay in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Just be in that flow state and enjoy it. And it's an opportunity for them to practice going in and out of the meta narrative, like, oh, this is what flow state feels like. Remember that at the next staff meeting. Remember that at the next retreat. Remember that at the next project presentation. Like, this is what it feels like to be in the moment, and also to observe myself in the moment, because those are two separate levels of awareness, and it could be hard to hold both.
Yes.
And so it takes practice. And as you know, and dear person watching, dear people watching, the more you engage in vocal improvisation, the more you unite those two and more, those various levels of awareness, being able to stay in the flow and also enjoy, like almost like you're your own audience member, like you're enjoying the flow too. I, as a facilitator, I'm enjoying the flow.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you almost for a little conclusion, but we're not quite there yet, about actually our meeting 2 years ago when we met in London. And this
Oh yeah.
time when, we can see many more connections in the community. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed changing with you. You were part of the symposium as well. And you were a great kind of communicator for, I think, holism and this idea of not wanting to be, in dual perspectives and implementation. You really kind of stayed with me. So I think of you as someone that picks up on nuance, in people. So I want to ask you, when you go around and meet supervisors, what do you think are some of the useful questions that people could ask themselves about this practice or this? What kind of inquiries do you think, we could have more of, in your opinion, or what draws you in about where our community big?
Oh, yeah. Well, the big one that always comes up in conversations is what I call the duality, dichotomy. I'm not binary. The dance. I'll call it the dance. The dance of the relational and the aesthetic. So
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that is the relational is, ooh, I feel our nervous system syncing together as we're singing. I feel the dopamine. I feel all the love chemicals. I feel this, but all the experience that anyone who is a choir geek, like the thing that keeps you coming back to, being in a vocal ensemble, like all the endorphins that come with just singing together. Almost doesn't matter what you sing. There's just something really ancient and primordial and beautiful about singing together. So that's the relational part. Like it can feel like, for even just for those moments of singing together or that concert that you do together, it kind of feels like a micro marriage, like this communion, this fellowship, singing together. So that's the relational. And then you have the aesthetic, aka sounding good, or sounding, creating music that you want to return to, having the kind of singing circle where you say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we recorded that because I actually want to listen to that again and again and again. Or I wish we did record that because that was one of those magical, magical moments of ephemera that will never happen again in that particular way with these particular people. Oh, I wish we recorded that moment because it was so transcendent. So, like that's the dream. And what a gift that that dream often comes true, especially when you sing with other people who practice a lot.
Yeah.
And then so you have these two priorities, and you bring those priorities into a space where there are people of completely different levels, people who have never sung before at all, not even in the shower, and maybe aren't 100% accurate with matching pitch. And then you have the virtuosos who might get annoyed, singing in a context with people who don't really sing at all outside of this context, or get frustrated because the aesthetic of the music may not get as sophisticated and virtuosic as it could get with people who are in the trenches with you, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't want to sing with civilians, that kind of thing. Well, for me, I am much more inclusionary in the sense that I think that there are spaces that can be made available for people at all different levels. So, for example, there are workshops that I do that are explicitly for like absolute beginners, where the focus will really just be on what does a tone feel like in your mouth? Like these invisible waves, I'll even do like visual aids like that, like actually getting in touch with this instrument called the voice, getting in touch with this instrument called the body that is voiced. So that's that beginner level. And then like intermediate, people who've been introduced to this work, people who may sing in the shower, people who, may have an ear for music, but it's not necessarily like the thing. It's not the, they're not the devotees, they're enthusiasts.
Yeah.
And so I meet them at the level of that enthusiasm where they may accidentally do something phenomenal, but aren't necessarily able to get to that transcendent place every time. But they do, and it's a high like no other. And then you have like, the hardcore, people I've worked with, people I've been in ensembles with, and people I've recorded with. Like it's such a, and I mean, even with them, it's not necessarily that we go to this magical transcendent place every time, but we are 100%, we are devoted. So we're willing to sound ugly. We're willing to experiment and just do some really wacky stuff that will, thankfully never see the light of day outside of that moment. And also make beautiful things that exist for that moment or go on to be developed into like polished songs. So, there's room for all. I do find the most challenging, but also most fertile ground is mixed level singing, where people of all different levels of skill and different levels of confidence. Because you have low skill, high confident people who bring a really particular richness to that experience. Like what's that psychological term where you don't know how much you don't know, so you're extra confident in the little bit that you do know.
Unconscious competence? No, probably.
Yes, I want to say Dunning-Kruger. That's the phrase that I think it's something like the Dunning-Kruger effect. Like you don't realize how, like you just learn like one skill, you're like, oh yeah, I got this. Let's go. And it's great because it helps open up other people who are also relative beginners, like, oh, you can be that bold and you can be that off key, and we'll help you find your way to matching pitch. It'll be fine, or maybe we'll entrain into wherever you land, and maybe that thing that the inner music conservatory trained person in me would have defined as off key. Maybe that off key is the actual key. And maybe like we just let that be the experience deliberately. The Miles Davis, he has a famous quote, the first something like the first missed note on the keyboard is a mistake. The second one is a choice.
Yes.
So if you make a quote unquote mistake, just do it again with even more vigor. And let that take the song somewhere that it wouldn't have gone otherwise. So
Thank you for sharing that. And it also made me think of, as improvisers, sometimes we're doing so many different processes at a time that we don't, for people who are maybe starting off, they really need things kind of breaking apart in a different way. It might be, common language to us, but actually, as you said, what is a tone? How does a tone feel? How does open feel? Concepts that are seemingly elemental, and it's so beautiful to stay with them for longer than we think, we might do. And then also to see how many different people we can invite in that space. So it doesn't mean that because you've done certain formal education that, those things are clear in your body, right? It could be rationally clear, but then you're so it's really beautiful the way you're speaking about creating.
Sorry, I missed the last part. Beautiful how you're speaking about.
Yes, I was saying that it's beautiful the way you're talking about creating those, mixed experience spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I don't really have a final question. I was wondering some sound, or if there's anything else that you would like to share, for instance, where people find your work, or if there's anything that's coming that you would like to touch upon.
Oh, yes. So, in the interest of keeping this conversation as evergreen as possible, I'm gonna be like, okay, June 6th, come to my blah, blah, blah. But what I will say is to stay abreast or a leg or a thigh with what I've got going on. You can go to my website, onome.org. That's O as in orange, N as in Nancy, O as in orange, M as in Mary, E as in Edward.org. Oh, and by the way, a big part of why I'm so enthralled by sound is actually because of my name. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine having a name like Onome, which in the United States, people often hear it as a Southern, like anime, like Aname. And so constantly correcting people by showing them how my name is spelled. It was this practice in watching people shift their perception in real time, going from like how they saw their name in my head or how they heard their name in their head. And then like visually, and like getting a visual reference that would like flip a switch, like, oh, Onome. There's something about that real-time perceptual shift that prepared me for vocal improvisation. Like if you ask me as a child, what I wanted to be when I grow up, I probably would have said a singer or a journalist or a psychologist, because I'm so fascinated by the psyche and the soul and creative expression and what it does for our psyche, what it does for our soul, what it does for our spirit. But I never would have thought that, like literally every time I would tell people my name and go through that dance of, oh, I can see that they have one idea in their mind of what my name is. And now I get to watch them flip that switch once they see, and then attach what they see to what they hear in a different kind of way. And then there's also this other meta thing that's very particular to the United States. Because in England, there's actually a pretty big Nigerian population. So my name didn't really come as a surprise to anyone, while I was there. But here in the United States, a name like Aname, Aname, has a very particular resonance. Like people think of the South, people think of a Black woman from the American South, and thus people would have particular ideas or even stereotypes of like who they expect me to be or how they expect me to show up. And so them flipping the switch to like, oh, you're a child of Nigerian immigrants, which is a very different kind of Black experience from, foundational African American
Hmm.
person. And that would introduce a whole other like meta narrative of like not knowing how to place me or how to respond to me or how to engage with me because they just don't like who, like immigration wasn't really like in the popular consciousness or in the consciousness of popular culture in the United States in like the 90s. So it's like, what? Like, and I grew up in Chicago. In Chicago, you're either black or white. You're not Nigerian or Caribbean or, So that also introduced a more kaleidoscopic relationship to identity than, just black or white thinking, to pun intended. So all that to say, you can find me at Onome, ONOME.org.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you, your perspective, the way about vocal improvisation, and I can't wait to sing with you again. So hopefully that happens soon. And up
Yes.
then, uh, stay in touch. Everyone listening, thank you for being here. Stay in touch with the web here at theweb.com. And Onome, we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Yaka. Bye.
Bye, everyone.